invisible? Sorry, we are used to asking these questions in the past 2.5 years. Let me try. Hello everyone, good morning. So nice to see people in person. Do we all agree? Anyone anxious? I was sitting on the last chair in the corner when we started off. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming. Thanks to Dipti and the whole team for organizing this conference, giving us the opportunity to meet face to face. I'm Anand Bagmar, and I've been in the testing space, sorry, let me correct myself. I've been in the quality space for more than 20 years now. And that distinction is very important. The minute we talk about testing, we have pigeonholed ourselves, we are in a silo. We cannot work like that, we cannot continue to work like that. It's important to think about quality, and with quality, it means it's not just testers' responsibility to ensure the product is working well. So with that, how many of us are testers in the room? Okay. Great. So for the others who didn't raise their hand, what is your role? Sorry? Quality. Quality. Good, good. We are learning fast. Excellent, excellent. Round of applause for it. Any other role? Business development. Great. Any developers? Great. Few of us. Excellent. Okay.
Automation development.
Okay, another silo, great, automation development. Okay, great. So good, we have got some breadth of representation over here. And what I want to talk about today is how we are limiting ourselves in our ability to build a quality product and what we can do next or what can we do better to take the next step forward. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and we can continue the conversation after as well. So, since most of us are in testing and some of us are in quality, this question is mainly for you, but others also please feel to contribute to this. First question, what is this on the screen?
Ink pen.
Who said ink pen?
Ink pen.
Okay? Yeah, very specific, right? It's an ink pen. Okay? Makes a difference.
It's also a fountain pen.
Fountain pen, that's another word for an ink pen probably. Okay? The question is not about what this is, but the question really is, yeah?
This is a product.
This is a product, okay. What role is it? Okay, so the next question. How do you test this pen? And just shout out the answers, we've got very limited time.
If it writes or not. Whether it
Writes or not?
If it spills or not.
Whether it
Spills.
spills.
Nib is working.
Cap fits or not.
Cap fits or not? The ink flow is appropriate.
Color and size.
Color of what?
Ink and pen.
Color of the ink, color of the pen. Is it the same test or different test?
Different.
Okay. What else?
Can I put the ink back?
Can you refill the ink? Okay.
How long the pen will
Can you hold
last?
it? How long can you last? Okay.
Flexibility of holding.
Flexibility of
Holding the pen.
holding the pen. What does that depend on?
User.
Who's the user? Is it an adult? Is it a child? Is it an old person? Does it matter?
Somebody else.
Right? So again, the reason of these questions is that it has to be very specific. We cannot just say this is a pen and it is used for writing. Right? We have to get more specific about this. But now, so these are typical answers and we spoke about these and many others as well, right? But what we have spoken about, the answers that we've given, most of these are unfortunately extremely superficial. Any idea why?
Is it meant for writing or is it just an antique?
Good question. Okay. Maybe we should have led with these questions as well, right? It's important. Who's the user? Or is it a product, just a display piece, or it's an actual pen or not? That changes the perspective of how you need to test it as well. Okay? The reason I say our test cases that we spoke about are superficial is because the pen is made of many different components. Now we did speak some aspects of this, does the ink leak or not, can you refill it or not, but that depends on what is the design of the pen. For old timers like me, we didn't really have the cartridge based pens very easily available at that time. We had the actual container where we used to pour ink in that and use it. And it used to be fun because school uniforms used to get stained, hands used to get stained. If you want to be more sophisticated, you'll get a syringe, and with the syringe you'll fill it up and all those kind of fancy stuff, right? The entertainment and joys of life at that time. But if these are the different components that is going to assemble the pen, does it not make sense to test each component if it is working correctly before we get to the test cases we spoke about? Why? Because if the cartridge does not fit correctly, what's the point of assembling the pen and then figuring out the ink is leaking? You could have figured it out in the initial days itself, fixed the problem over there, so all the subsequent components of the pen are going to work correctly, integrate correctly. Now, why is this important? This is exactly what we do in software as well. I'm guessing we all are testing software products or building software products. We cannot just be relying on an end product to see how we are testing it. Because the product has got complex architecture, there are a lot of moving pieces, and we need to see how they each are coming together to serve the functionality that we are looking for. Okay? Now, this is all fine. There is nothing new over here in that sense. We all are aware of these things. But what is missing over here? Any guesses?
Missing on what?
What is missing in this approach, what we spoke about?
Reason behind product.
Reason behind the product building, but that is way earlier in the cycle. You should have thought about that before you start building the product, right? How do you continue to ensure what was working well continues to work well after the fact as well, or as your product evolves? Right? The repeatability is important. So what is a typical testing approach from a repeatability perspective? Regression. A very bad name, unfortunately. Different topic, or we can talk separately after now. Why I say regression is a very bad term in that sense. Okay? But our approach to testing, if it is continuing to work well, is we play the puzzle, spot the difference. Okay? Now here's again quiz for you. How many differences do you see on the screen? I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay, that's a separate conversation. Okay. So there are 4 differences that I could find. Okay? How many of you found all the 4? Don't just raise your hand. Okay. How many differences exist over here? Speak out the answer. I'm not going to give you all the time. 2. Wrong answer. Okay. So this is where we get into a situation where defects escape. Because we're doing this manually. We're repeating this activity manually. So how do you overcome this challenge? Automate. Who said more time? Where's your manager? Is the manager giving you enough time to test and say, are you done testing? But jokes apart, do we have the luxury of time? We don't. So what do? The next best thing, if it's any repeated activity, we'll try to automate it, right? It's obvious, straightforward. Now, how do we automate? Selenium. Okay. Is Narayan in the room? There's also Sahi as an option. Okay? There are too many options. Okay? So don't get pigeonholed into one tool. Though I'm a contributor on the Selenium project, use the tool that is right fit. Okay? But again, separate conversation. But if you focus on just the functional layer, then you are in deep problem. It's the same problem like the pen. You are testing superficially. So what do you need to do? You need to think about the test pyramid. Now the test pyramid has got many layers. based on your product, identify the different layers of the pyramid, the right tech stack tool sets required to automate it to get the fastest feedback possible. Okay? Now, there are many aspects to the pyramid, but again, I'm not going to talk about the pyramid right now. But it's important to note that this test pyramid is a combination of a lot of different types of automation, and there is a cloud on top, which I call manual or exploratory testing. I don't like the word manual at all, but I use it because a lot of people don't understand what exploratory testing means. Manual testing is, unfortunately, you write down test cases, put it into some dumb tool as test case management, and keep repeating the same activities at regular cycles, regression cycles or whatever. Right? That type of testing does not add any value. But you do risk-based, you do exploratory testing based on context of what has changed, that will help your product. And that, in combination with all the automated tests, will tell you what is the quality of your product. And this is where the difference between quality and testing comes in. Testing, you focus typically on the top two layers, right? Manual exploratory and UI end-to-end testing or functional testing. But quality is about all the other roles required to make this right, which also includes product asking questions, what is this product for? How is it going to be used? Who's going to use it? Start from there. So everyone needs to get involved in. Okay? But that's the automation pyramid. Now, this is not the complete pyramid. The pyramid also includes NFR testing, NFR automation. And there could be different types of NFR automation based on your product that you are building. Some of these may be applicable, some others may be applicable, or whatever the combination is. Figure out what is going to give you value, and there is a lot of different types of automation required to make sure you're getting a continuous feedback of the quality of your product. Okay? Unfortunately though, we end up focusing, as we started off as well, just on the top layer of the pyramid. Most of the audience in this room is focusing on the top layer. In some cases, we try to influence other aspects of quality. In many cases, we are unable to influence, or we are not even aware there are other ways how you can build quality into the product. And that's a problem. So coming back to how do we test at the top layer, it is what the difference type of approach. So here's another quiz for you. How many differences do you see over here? Wait. This is not how we test. We've got one expectation of what the product needs to be in terms of wireframes, requirement documents, whatever. Okay? And here comes a new build. And we are trying to correlate and find out what is difference in this build versus the other. So now tell me, how many differences do you see over here? Because you don't have the expected screen in front of you at all times. That too, the expected screen might be a mock screen, right, with dummy data. Your product is not a dummy product. It has got real data, contextual data. And you are trying to correlate one expectation with something which could be completely different, but you're trying to correlate and see is it valid or not. So now I've given more than 20 seconds. How many differences do you see in the two screens? In the two images? Sorry?
We don't see two screens together now.
But I showed you the earlier screen. That's how we test. So, there are 6 differences. Do we agree? We are wrong. There is one difference which I have missed out over here, which I found out today morning.
After the release.
Sorry?
After the release.
Yeah, that's the user reporting the bug, right? I found an obstacle, I fell down over there, some over there. But this is how we end up testing, unfortunately. Is that true or false? Yeah? Yeah, we'll have the original build more time to look at it and understand it for sure. But unfortunate reality is that's how we test. And it is of no surprise that same thing happens in software as well. And you will see defects of this type in each and every product that you come across at some point in time. You will see it in Instagram, Twitter, UPS, media websites, e-commerce websites, banking websites, travel websites, and there is no limit to where you can see these options or problems. It could be any domain, any type of product, any geography, it does not matter. these defects escape into production because our approach to testing is limited, it is incorrect. We are focused on finding the differences as we see on the screen. Is that a scalable solution? We are living in, who is not doing CI? I'm not even talking about CD. Who is not doing CI over here? Not a single hand raise. Everyone is working on continuous integration based approach. That means your builds are coming in very fast. Can you repeat this manual testing every time? Can you repeat it for each and every browser or each and every device, for each and every viewport that you're working on? It is impossible to do that. Okay? And this is where, as a team, we are playing the game of chance. If I find the issue, great. We have prevented an issue going forward. Otherwise, we have users who will report it. In fact, there is actually a technique or a term now called testing in production. It solves a lot of different problems from infrastructure and every other perspective, but you're using your actual end users to test for you and report it back. This is a problem and then we'll fix it. Great strategy depending on context of the product. Okay? So we cannot be doing this manually every time. It just does not scale. It is not going to work for you. And that is where you need to evolve your approach of testing and start using visual testing as an add-on strategy of quality for your product. Okay? Now, what happens if visual testing is not done? We've seen a lot of examples. What can happen? What's the impact?
User frustration.
Yeah? More production issues, of course. But what does that mean? Brand.
User is dissatisfied.
User is dissatisfied, comes related to brand.
Lost user never coming back again.
Sorry?
Lost user never coming back again.
Lost user, very important point.
Screenshots on Twitter that cannot be deleted.
Brand. Right? Cost. What do you mean by cost? Cost of fixing the defect. We know the classic graph of how the cost increases exponentially if you delay finding it and fixing the issue. Right?
Revenue also, because
Exactly.
people are uninstalling the app just because things are not working.
Exactly.
And also cost of acquiring a user. That's also a cost which has gone back.
Exactly. Cost has many dimensions to it, not just fixing, but cost of losing the user, reacquiring the user, and so on, right? And this is absolutely correct. So we've got business revenue loss that can happen, brand and credibility loss that can happen, you lose your users, and all of these are big problems. And that issue might be trivial, but these days we are living in a world of viral videos, viral tweets, whatever is going on. Everything has to be viral. The minute a problem is seen, screenshots are taken and they are circulated. It could be a trivial problem, but that can lose a lot of credibility for you. Okay? So what is visual testing? It's an ability to compare what you see on the screen with what is expected. In very, very simplistic terms. It's comparing what you see in your product with what is expected from that product. Now, let's understand more about this. Okay? How is visual testing done? Has anyone done visual testing before?
Everyone does it.
How is it typically done? Could you share?
Comparing before and after screenshots.
Correct? That is what visual testing is. But how is it done? How do you compare it?
Using the magic.
Okay? So use some tools to compare the before and after and do that. Now, before tools like this, what you mentioned were there, it was mostly done manually. What we saw earlier as well, right? You do this manually. And that is where we try to find the defects. If we are lucky, the differences. If we are lucky, we'll find everything. If we are unlucky, it's up to the users who are going to report it in some fashion, or you figure it out by chance. Okay? Now, what are the challenges of visual testing? We've already spoken about this, right? Done manually. And because it's manual, it is tedious, it is error prone, and it cannot be scaled and repeated. And of course, because it is manual, it is a blocker for your continuous integration, continuous deployment. That's a challenge. So now, I found a visual purpose. This is where functional automation can help a little. Tools like Imagic, you said, right? Yeah?
Applitools is also.
Applitools is also. There are many tools over here. This talk is not about a particular tool, but it's more about the thought process about how it is to be done. Right? So functional automation can help a little where you're using your existing automation tools, Selenium, Sahi, Cypress. We named these tools earlier in the conversation. These tools, you can integrate visual testing along with it using any tool that might be there. And as your automation tool is driving the product to do the actions on the screen, whether browser or device, you will also do visual testing along with them. Okay? So you're using a combination of functional automation to do visual testing as well. But how does that automation really work? Let's get into more specifics. So first thing, any such tool will need is you need a reference point to compare the screen. You need a baseline. What is an expected golden state of your product for that particular test scenario for that screen? So you need to be able to create a baseline. Then as you run your test scenario, I'm on the login screen, then I have logged in, so I land on the home page. From home page, I go to my profile page. Your automation is going to go through these different scenarios on each particular screen which is important to you. You will capture a screenshot and you will compare it with that particular baseline. Or screenshot for that baseline, right? And this screenshot can be a whole page or it can be snippet of the page as well. Because maybe the whole page is not important to me. I just want to focus on certain parts of the page. So you can do it that way as well. Okay? Now, a very important aspect, this is not the only part of visual testing. A very important aspect of any tool that you use is about how can you easily update your baselines as well, because your product is going to keep evolving. As the product evolves, you need a very easy mechanism to update the baselines. And when you update the baselines, next time you run the test, automatically the last saved baseline will be used for comparison. Right? With me so far? Yeah. Okay. So now, let's talk about what are the challenges of visual testing. The main thing, the biggest challenge why we are doing visual testing is we don't want to have the false positives or the false negatives. Any comparison that you do has to be accurate so that when the difference is highlighted, you can take a decision on that with confidence. You should not be saying, has the comparison captured all the differences that exist or not? If that doubt is there in mind, then it's going to be a problem. The tool is not going to give you enough value, right? So the biggest challenge is the false positives, negative. And this becomes very important, especially in the case of a dynamic product, not a static product per se, when the content is changing. Okay? The next challenge is about creation of the baselines and maintaining the baselines. How easy does the tool make it for you to create the baselines and update it when the product evolves? And this, of course, could depend based on browsers, based on devices, based on resolutions or viewport sizes. Because remember from some of the examples I showed, right? I think it was SpiceJet website on mobile web. It was not showing the layout correctly for mobile web. What does that mean? The website is a responsive web design. But is it adjusting correctly based on the viewports that you're using? Can you see the website correctly in any browser or any browser version that you might be testing? You need to be able to work correctly with that. Now in many cases, and for that matter, thankfully we are out of the days of Internet Explorer now. But each browser still has its own different rendering engine. So the same page, even though it is static, can be seen differently in different browsers. There will be slight differences, if not more. Same content would be seen differently. Now, if you try to compare one browser screenshot with the other, you might again get false positives as differences. But that you cannot control because the browser is rendering the same content. So you have to be able to create baselines for each of your combinations, unique combinations, and then do an apple-to-apple comparison. And of course, it's not just important to run the tests for all these create baselines. The results that are presented to you should be easy for you to take decision on. And the decision could be, my product has evolved, I need to update the baseline, or there are differences found, which means it's a defect that I have found, I need to report it as a defect, fail the test, report it to my developer so they can fix it quickly. Okay? So these are the typical challenges of visual test automation, and these are not trivial challenges. Depending on context of your product, you should choose a tool based on what challenges of these might come to in front of you and how that tool is able to solve these problems. Okay? Now, already mentioned this, your product is evolving. If it's a new project that is starting, you will start with a hello world type of application, and then you will start evolving, adding functionalities, capabilities in your product. So your test automation, your visual test automation also needs to be able to evolve in this aspect. And we'll see this in any type of product again that we come across. These are extremely dynamic products. I've just taken any random websites, some popular websites in India these days. And none of these websites, if you do a visual testing just by using the same content, is ever going to work. Even if you run the same test within, right one after the other, it could change. Because these are extremely dynamic products. Okay? So, in such cases, how do you work with visual automation? So, your product is evolving in terms of features, functionality, there's personalization that is there, there could be contextual data that is there, there is experiments that are happening in your product, A/B testing and so on. I actually worked with some companies where they had 20 experiments running at the same time. Amazing type of thought process, and they were able to measure the impact of these experiments as well. Right? So if there's so much massive experimentation going on in your product, how are you going to do automation correctly? Because automation itself becomes a challenge when A/B experiments are going on, right? Because locators will change, flows are going to change. How do you work with that? And visual testing, of course, is going to be different because of that. And there is also feature toggles, because we want to release as quickly as possible. Each team, we might be in a large product team, and each team wants to be able to deploy to production as quickly as possible without waiting for the other teams to come together. So in that case, you want to use feature toggles, release quickly with confidence. When the other teams are deployed in production as well, turn the toggle on and or the toggle off, and the feature is live. Right? So these dimensions make it even more challenging from a visual testing perspective. The other aspect, we spoke about the dynamic data, but a lot of tools, they use pixel-based comparison for doing this evaluation. Now, even in a static website with a pixel difference, you will see that there is a lot of challenges or false positives you get on the screen. This, I don't know if it is here, but this is from our website, right? And I don't know how fun CEO KF came up over here instead of fun. We should check it out, right? And there are a lot of other differences as well, and this is using a pixel comparison. Okay? But if you look at it, almost the whole page is different, right? Other than the gray background, there's some difference here, but almost the whole page is highlighted as a difference using pixel comparison. But if you use some better algorithms, so pixel comparison does not work in such cases, but if you use a better algorithm, then you could potentially focus just on what the differences are. So we see over here the icon over here is missing, the logo is missing, there's a typo over here, there are a lot of differences over here. I don't know what is happening to our website. But the other aspects of pixel differences, they are hidden off because pixel differences do not add any value. As humans, we are not able to understand the difference in a one or two or few pixel differences over here. A lot of tools, they give you a tolerance setting, how much tolerance is acceptable in your comparison. But I have never understood why 1% is okay, 0.8% is okay, 1.1% is not okay. And that still doesn't give you the assurity that false positives will not be there with that tolerance. It's a big risk you are taking. So again, depending on context of your product, maybe pixel comparison works for you, maybe tolerance level works for you. But in most cases, you will find that it is missing out on some things or flagging things which are not really there. Okay? So pixel comparison is a problem and that will not help. And that's where there is a good advancement in AI-based tools, visual testing tools that can give you a lot of value, that can solve a lot of these challenges that I've been speaking about. So over here, I want to do a quick demo of Applitools, how Applitools solves this problem. Okay? In Applitools, use any automation tool, integrate Applitools with that, run the test over there. When you run the test, the first time the test is run, it is marked as passed by default. That's a default setting. It is marked as new. You click on the test, you will see over here, there is no baseline image, and there is a screenshot that was captured, which is saved as a baseline. So creation of baselines, very easy. Now, if it's an existing product and then you are adding visual validation, this could be a risk because you are approving a baseline for a product which might already have some defects in it, right? So it's a very simple flag that you can change in the settings to say any new test, do not save it as a baseline automatically. In that case, it will show up as a difference. It will say it is unresolved, not in green, it will be in orange. You come, you manually inspect the screen the first time. If there is a defect, report it, get it fixed. But if everything is fine, do a thumbs up, approve it as a baseline, and then your baseline is set properly. Going forward, you don't have to repeat that. Then you just have to focus on what the differences are and take decisions on them. Okay? The next time you run the test, I'm just taking any random examples over here. These are tests that I've run on my blog. Now this is using a strict algorithm, which is an AI-based algorithm. It says anything that is different to the human eye, flag it as a difference. Okay? So these are all the differences that are highlighted on the screen, which if we look at it, if I toggle between both of them, you will see whatever is really different without having to read the text or look at the images or the color or anything. Everything that is different is highlighted over here automatically for me. But I know that these are different blog posts that I have. This is not the right comparison that is happening for me because the content is different. So they have other algorithms where you could use maybe a layout algorithm where they say that we will not focus on the content, but we'll see if the structure of the page is as expected or not. Forget the content. Now in this case, there are no differences found. If I highlight it, there are no differences found over here because from a structure of this page perspective, everything is fine. All content is removed from it. Okay? Now, maybe it is important for me to have a strict algorithm because that is the most powerful. Anything different, it will show it to me, right? But I know the blog post content can be different. So can I use a different algorithm for it? So what I could do is, this is the part that I don't miss about online. It's easy to change this without looking back. So I am marking a particular region in a different algorithm. And now we can see over here from a layout perspective, is there something different over here? This region is in layout, rest is in strict, and it is fine, probably, right? So you can use a combination of these algorithms. You understand the product best. You know what part of your product data you have control on, what parts you do not have control on. Classic case could be the date time that comes on when you log in. Everything else might be same, but date time is different. But it is important as well. So you will mark the date time in layout, everything else is in strict, and you get maximum validation. How many of us work on products or have seen products where ads keep popping up in the product? Very often, right? We'll see ads showing up. So maybe we say, in our product, if there are ads showing up, I want to ignore that particular section because I cannot control what ad is going to show up or not. If it will show up, if it shows up, which ad will show up, I have no control. I'm just going to ignore that section from comparison. So now I can do mix match of these algorithms to get maximum value from testing that particular screen. And all of these combinations could be done programmatically as well. You don't have to come to the dashboard to make these changes. You could do these programmatically. You identify a particular region or element and say, this region I want to use a different algorithm. You'll be able to use it. Okay? The last part I want to talk about visual testing. I spoke initially about the different types of browsers and devices that we have, the different viewport sizes. What is a typical approach to testing these different browsers and viewport sizes? It's a strategy we call as cross-browser testing in most cases, right? Cross-browser, cross-device testing. What does that mean? I have 100 tests. I have 3 browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Safari. I have got 3 viewport sizes, full screen laptop browser, tablet and mobile phone. So essentially I've got 9 device combinations that I need to test in very simplistic terms, right? So if I have 100 tests, I will run those 100 tests 9 times on each of these combinations to get the full results back. Is my product working correctly on all of these? Of course, then we'll start optimizing and say, do I need all these 100 running on all of these and all that, right? Optimizations will happen. But a typical cross-browser testing strategies, you'll repeat the test execution on whatever combinations that make sense for you. So if we say the subset is 100 tests, running 9 times, 900 tests. If 100 tests take 1 hour to execute, if we are lucky, it is 9 hours of test execution time which is going to happen. And it is 900 tests that we need to take look at the results and see what is going on. How many of us do cross-browser testing in similar fashion? Okay. How many of these tests give deterministic results? Or do you see flaky tests, some browsers timing out and whatever else? Right? What do you typically do in that case? You have to rerun that or do that test manually. So you're not getting real value from repeating the same test execution. So that's where Applitools has again a very interesting product from a scaling perspective called the ultra-fast grid, where what you would say is, I'm going to run the same test. Oh, this is really difficult to see there. Okay. So I'm going to run the same test in different set of combinations. So over here, let me say it is based on group by test name. So there are 3 tests, but each test has run 13 times because there were 13 different combinations of viewport size or browser names that I have provided. Let me group all and do this again. Okay. So it's the same test which has run on different viewport size, browser names, browser versions that are there. So what this does is, the test will run just once on a browser of your choice. But with the Applitools configuration that you provide, whenever you do a visual validation, it will automatically re-render the same page on the other browser configurations you have provided. It is not going to run the same test again. It is like saying I have Netflix or Amazon Prime Video, I'm downloading a video, then in airplane mode, I can play back the video without network connectivity. It is similar concept. You take a snapshot, Applitools takes a snapshot of the page, re-renders the same page in all the different browsers, devices that you have configured, and when it configures that, then it does the visual testing for it, and the results come back to the same test which was running on your machine. Your machine could be actual, your laptop or your CI infrastructure or in the cloud, doesn't matter. But the test is running just once, but you're getting the feedback from all these combinations automatically.
And does it run like sequentially or they have parallel options also?
That is not an Applitools configuration, that is your test framework configuration. Your test could be running in parallel or in sequence. Applitools, whenever your test says do a visual validation, it will do a visual validation and get it back. Right? If you run in parallel, it will give you faster feedback. Right? But the point is you run 100 tests, but you're getting feedback from 900 verifications at the same time. Instead of 9 hours, maybe in an hour, 10 minutes, you're getting all the results back because there's a lot more validation that is happening, right? So it will extend your test time a little bit, but it's only for 100 tests, not for 900 tests. Flakiness goes away, network load goes away, test data requirement goes away, so a lot of value. Okay? So this way you will be able to scale your execution for all your supported browsers, devices very easily and get value from it. So what this now means, right? And this is one of the tools. There are many other tools as well from visual testing perspective. As I said, look at what is expected from your product, what are the challenges that can come up, and how best to solve that. Okay? So what this means is the manual part of visual inspection can now be automated as well. And when it is automated, the automation cannot take a decision, is this right or wrong? If there is any tool which is telling you this is right, this is wrong, I think that's a big problem right now. We have not yet evolved to that stage of saying the tool can take a decision right or wrong. The tool can tell you, here are the differences. The tool can tell you with confidence, here are the differences, but you as a team member understand, is this difference because of a product change or is this a defect? The tool cannot tell you that. Okay? So you automate that. Also what this means is user experience testing can also be automated as part of your test pyramid, and that can give you a lot of value. And a combined aspect of all these automation and the non-automated test tells you the quality of your product. So the next time if any lead or manager says, to do a release, I want to get a report from the testing team, do not hesitate to ask where's the report from the dev team as well, what testing they've done. Because all of these aspects are required to build a quality product. Okay? So to summarize, it's very important to have a holistic quality strategy, which also includes visual aspects to it, depending on what is the context of your product. What is the impact of certain things if they do not work well for your users or in front of your users? What is the impact of that to you as an organization, to your product as well? And based on that, decide what aspects to include in your quality, what should not be there. You have to shift left, and shifting left also includes aspect of visual testing. This part cannot remain manual. The part that is still manual is looking at the visual test results to take a decision, but you're not testing all these combinations manually for every build. You are taking a look at the results that are there and taking quick decisions on that. And visual testing, in my opinion, is very important to consider these days to help us move faster in a CI/CD thought process. There are certain references that I have over here. The slides will be shared separately. But with that, I would like to pause over here. I don't know how much time we have for questions, but I hope this gave you an insight about what is visual testing, why it is important to automate that, what are the challenges, what are the different options you can use for solving these challenges as well. Yes.
I don't know if there's time for questions.